Good morning. I am Dave.
I'm Matt.
And we are here to
Pump you up
with Jesus.
And so this is the first Sunday in Lent. And you notice we're all in purple here, except for those not on camera. All right, so it is Viking season again. So all you Minnesota Viking fans, y'all can get your purple out again, and you can celebrate, and no one's going to say anything because it is Lent. You have 6 weeks to wear it out until football season begins. So, good tie-in there. Lent, purple. Purple being a royalty color, and a royalty pointing us back to Jesus. Why 6 weeks? 40 days is what we tend to go for. 40 days Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, but you also have to kind of keep in mind that when we talk about changing a pattern, a habit, it takes 40 days at it to change a habit typically. So Lent, 40 days of just remembering who we are, who Jesus is, and remembering the humility and the suffering that he went through. I mean, that's what Lent's all about.
Can I do a sidebar from that?
I don't know. Can you?
Okay. You can, but you probably shouldn't. No. I had a congregant ask me, what's the significance of 40? Is that where it starts?
Yeah. Those two things.
Okay.
But mainly it's about Jesus.
Okay.
And you have a lot of 40 things in the Bible.
40 days and 40 nights, 40 days in the desert, all sorts of different ones.
40 years wandering around, not asking for directions. So there's a lot of 40 kind of stuff in there. 40 in the Hebrew mind, 40 is a lifetime. And we're like, well, we live to be 80. Well, 40 is what you count as,
a generation type thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you take a look at that, and the 40s ring out. You take a look at what it takes mentally to get into a new state of mind. It's generally 40. So that's what we look at.
Gotcha.
And so it's actually 46 days. Last time I checked, they don't count Sundays in Lent. So I was trying to do that when I was trying to give up chocolate. So I would sneak chocolate on Sundays because it's not part of Lent. So.
Is that your thing you gave up this year again?
I can't remember what I did. Well, if I can't remember what I gave up for Lent, then I sure gave it up, didn't I?
There you go.
I know. But that giving up is part of your suffering. The problem is sometimes that giving up is caffeine, and it's not making you suffer, it's making everybody else suffer.
Good point.
So you got to be careful of what you give up. So I thought we'd be in Genesis 22 today, so we need to start off.
Lord God, Heavenly Father, thank you for warmer temperatures outside and the beautiful sunshine we've been having lately. Please guide us and direct us for understanding in your word. In Jesus' name.
All right, so Genesis chapter 22, we're talking about Abraham here. Abraham has a dilemma that we're going to discover from Genesis chapter 22. Dave, you want to kind of take it?
Sure. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, "Abraham, here I am," he replied. Then God said, "Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about." Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you." Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, "Father." "Yes, my son," Abraham replied, "the fire and the wood are here, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham answered, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And the two of them went on together.
All right, we want to stop there. that's where we kind of left off this morning, our Old Testament reading, for a reason. There's a little bit going on here. If you remember from the Old Testament, Abraham is told, hey, Abraham, look at all those stars. That's the number of children that you're going to have. And so he gets into be really old, into his 90s, and God personally visits and says, okay, next year you're going to have a son. And that's when Sarah laughs. And Abraham's like, okay. And so we get into that time, and what Abraham is like, okay, am I going to have a son? What's going on, God? I really would like, a little bit more clarity on this one. He has a son, and then here is where Abraham is being told, okay, now that thing that you love so much in your life, that son, you need to return him back to God. And in his mind, you can kind of hear that struggle that's going through. I mean, just look at what God says. Then God said, take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah, and sacrifice him there. Okay, so right then and there is take the most precious thing you think you have, and do the most gruesome thing you can do to him. I mean, would you struggle with that?
I don't know where I'd be at with that. Yeah. We were talking about that in Bible study too before, and the guy said there's no way they could do that.
Well, the question is, what would you give up in order for you to understand where God is in your life? And that's not necessarily, hey, your kid's gonna die. It's your kid's gonna die by your hand.
Yeah.
That might be even the worst struggle.
Yeah.
And a little part on this one is, how do you know when God's talking to you?
Oh, how do you know the voice in your head or the voice that you're...
I mean, it's not like he's there's not a biplane writing stuff in the air, hey, Moses. I mean, it literally is, you have to figure out who is saying that. And another person will come back to me and it's like, hey, pastor, I mean, I got this person coming to me, and I've had it come to me in my office. They said that God told them to do this. And so you get that struggle there.
Yes.
Is what can you really say? Okay, let's sit down and let's try to figure out here.
Is this the real deal?
Yes, because, I mean, you do have some mental cases where God told me to jump off the bridge. God told, well, just like Abraham was told, I was told to harm my family. No. Remember, Satan likes to speak the words of God, but mix them up in such a way in which he did the same thing with Jesus. Why is he going to do something different? And so you look at what's going on, and that is a struggle of, I can't figure out what God is asking me to do. It's not like he's using loudspeakers in order to do that.
And Satan makes things sound like they should be, but they're not.
Yeah. And the whole process here is Abraham he's being held in a higher, because he just follows. But I mean, he's not a robot, and so you get that thought of, he has got to be going through some really tough struggles. As, okay, I don't even want to get out of bed this morning because I know what I'm about to do.
Well, at this point in time, where is he at with his faith? How has God gotten in contact with him before that? So Abraham all of a sudden God said, Abraham, I want you to be, the father of all my people.
Right.
So how did he come and talk to him when he did that?
Well, he's still, therein lies, Abraham, leave everybody that you know,
drop it.
and leave and go to a place that I'll tell you. Okay, so he does that, and it's like, okay.
How many people could do that?
I'm here in Minnesota.
Well, you like the snow and the below 50 below, don't you?
Well, of course. That's why I'm here. I mean, I left a land of plenty. Well, no, right now
Barbecue?
it's a land of icicles and yeah, no power. But yeah, it's. Can you hear the voice of God? I can't figure. Here's what I want to know, Dave. It just popped in my head. As Abraham is leaving with Isaac, what do you say to your wife?
Well, I know, yeah. I'll be back.
Hey, by the way, that kid that you just had, hey, by the way, I'm going to go kill him.
Yeah. I never even thought of that.
How do you come home without your son? God told, I don't know if she's going to be able to say, oh, yeah, that's the hard thing. In Job, it says, Job always returned praise back to God no matter what. That is difficult. In any circumstance to praise God, I don't know. That must have been something where if he had to look her in the eye and say, I'm leaving, we're going to go off and we're going to follow God's command. It's like...
Yeah, how do you say, the Bible teaches everything to God's glory. How do you say that after?
Yeah. And so even, this is why I say that, even as you can almost hear the suffering in his voice. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey, took with him two of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him. On the third day, which, come on, that's a direct reference, third day. All right, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servant, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you.
And on the other hand, he's walking with a thing full of wood 3 days to think about what he's got to do to his kid.
Well, yeah, it's on the donkey, so the donkey's, and he's got two servants. But can you look at your servants and say, we will be back? No.
Yeah.
We're going up, yeah. I don't want to call Abraham an outright liar, but what is he doing here saying that they would both return when he is, he is very, prophetic. Yes, they both will return. But I wonder deep down in his mind, is he saying, okay, two of us are coming up the mountain, one of us will not come back down.
And then we will come back to you. Yeah.
But it's prophetic. It's very prophetic. He did not lie as far as what the truth would be. But inside his heart, is he saying, I'm going to say this to them, but what's he going on? I don't know.
I could not imagine that.
And look at 6. Look at the heartache in that.
And place it on his son.
Could you take your kid and say, I'm about to sacrifice my kid. Oh, by the way, you need to carry what's going to burn you.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a pretty decent amount of wood here to build an altar that will totally engulf him.
Well, when they did the sacrifice, they burnt it to a crisp, right?
Correct.
There wasn't, yeah, okay.
Right.
So it would have to burn for a long time.
Yep. And so there's, I want to come back to this, but there's so much symbolism in here that I just want to get through the text, comment a little bit, and then go back and just dive deeper and deeper. There's so many levels in this, so let's keep going. But I think as the two of them went on together, verse 6, Isaac spoke up and said to his father Abraham, Father, yes, my son. Abraham replied, the fire and the wood are here. Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? That is irony like crazy. All right,
Yeah.
Where is the lamb speaks? All right, the whole thing. I'm supposed to be the lamb. All right, and so that is just, it's like how you're speaking and Father, who are you going to sacrifice today? And Abraham looking at him and said, let's just get up this mountain and we'll see. Maybe he is thinking maybe God will do something different.
You know, and you can tell that God provided that answer too, because if that was me, I don't know what I would have said. You know how he said God himself will provide the lamb. You know, I wouldn't have said you, but I mean, well, we'll see. Wait till we get.
Well, once again, I mean, how weird that he speaks so prophetically. We will come down the mountain. God will provide. I mean, and all those things. It's just amazing of all the things in which he spoke, not even probably realizing all the things that God was about to do, and yet he's still stuck on, I have to do this because I love God that much. And so we go a little bit further, and they reach the place, verse 9. They set up the altar, all right? You notice how fast they get from point A to point B in this, where verse 9, when they reach the place and they built an altar, and then all of a sudden he took Isaac and put him on the altar. I mean, can we get some play-by-play, like a commentary, like a football commentary?
Right, yeah.
All of a sudden they built the altar, all of a sudden Isaac goes on it. I mean, can you imagine Isaac is like,
What are you doing, Dad?
well, not like, Dad, what are you doing? It's like, Dad, what are you doing? And just what must... We paint this picture of Isaac saying, yes, Father. I mean, okay, he's about to sacrifice you. And you're probably saying, is my dad sane enough to be around? I mean...
Yeah. Who does that?
Did Abraham say, Isaac, God told me to do this, that's why I'm doing this, and God said this? Or did Abraham just do it? Don't know. But
either way,
I can't
you'd be going, what?
Yeah, and it's great that we could just speculate on all this and take up so much time. Because it's difficult.
Yeah.
And not one of us could do this. And so he bound up Isaac, laid him on the altar, takes his son and places him on the altar. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Here is where it gets really we're going to be digging some really deep ditches with this, because here's the theology. Here's where we're going to go back. I'm going to go back and remind you as they're going along. Number one, he cut the wood, and Isaac is the one who takes the wood up the mountain. All right? You're like, why does that? Because you remember there's a one and only son who, by a large amount of wood, is carrying that up the hill. You remember, Dave, that one?
Yep.
Okay. I introduce you to Jesus here this morning. All right? And so when we talk about Isaac, what Isaac is going through, I talked about how Abraham is very prophetic. God is very prophetic in everything that's being said and being done. You take a look at everything. Look how they got there. The donkey. All right? We talked about the triumphant entry. How does Jesus get into Jerusalem? He gets there by the donkey. Right? The donkey, I don't think it's the same one. All right? But it's in there all the time. And so God is taking a story and he's foretelling it. All of this is a foretell of what's about to happen. Especially because when we get to the end, we believe that the place they're at is the place of modern day Jerusalem. And that the place where we think that he sacrifices his son and it puts him on the altar, we would say that's the exact spot where Jesus would be brought on a cross and placed for all of Jerusalem to see.
Wow. I never even thought about the donkey part before either, how he was led on a donkey.
I bet you were thinking some other things, weren't you?
No.
I got to be careful with you, Dave. All right? So that is the interesting thing. But we take a look, and people always ask this question of verse 12. Do not lay a hand on the boy. He said, do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God. Okay, who's speaking, Dave, from verse 11?
Oh, the angel.
Angel of the Lord.
That's what I was going to ask, too, is who do they think the angel of the Lord was?
Okay, so what other times does the angel of the Lord appear in the Old Testament? Anything that you can think of?
I can't think of anything right now. My mind just went blank.
Charlton Heston.
Help a brother out?
Charlton Heston on another mountain. Things are burning. The wood's burning.
Oh, Moses up there when he's
Moses.
Yeah,
and
many times.
Moses, it says, the angel of the Lord was in the burning bush, and God called out from the bush. God's in there, and so is the angel of the Lord. Let's tie those two things together. Angel of the Lord, many times. There's a professor from Fort Wayne who actually wrote a self-published book, cost $300, all the different times in which the Old Testament you can see Jesus, all right? Because God will not appear to man, sinful man.
They can't be in the same presence.
Yeah, and so therefore you even see when Samson's parents have a visitation, the angel of the Lord, we believe Jesus also is there. They believe we have seen God and yet we live. So this is Jesus appearing. So Jesus appears in the Old Testament just as he appears in the New Testament. So this is Jesus right there speaking to Abraham, saying, don't kill your son. Now that they know. And this is what I would really want to get into, because I don't hear very many sermons get into this. And I haven't done enough study on it, and yet at the same time I can speak enough from what I have. The word there from the Hebrew is called yada. Yada, not Yoda, yada. All right, and yada, we think, okay, I'm gonna open the Bible and I'm gonna look and I'm gonna read and I'm gonna learn something. And so we take that and we apply that to this. Now that I know, okay, the yada, the knowing part of God, isn't that God looked at the situation and said, I've learned something. It's not that. Yada is actually encompassed also with the experience. Okay, and so when I look at this, I say, well, God is saying, now I have gone through this experience with you.
So
not that I've gained
I didn't
insight.
discover this, and
Yes.
I'm like, ooh, but I already, okay. I
Not,
got you.
and there are, the Jehovah's Witness. They believe God can't necessarily see in the future, but he's all-knowing. All right? They have that frame of mind that,
There's a few of those that think that God's learning as he's going.
yep. Maybe the Mormons, maybe also a little bit. They don't understand, like when God speaks on this, they have to say, okay, the English word has to be this. No, it's the Hebrew. And the Hebrew, when I looked it up, it's like a full column long of all the different meanings. And there's Adam and Eve, yadain, all right? And so, they conceive and have a son. And so that is one of the other, to know, all right? So yada can mean something where not necessarily the insight, but the experience of that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right? So when we take a look at this, it's not God it's not like God saying, hey, Abraham, I'm not going to know what's going to happen, but just do this. This is God fully knowing what's going to happen, and God declaring to us all these years, even before Jesus comes to earth, that he would be the son, the only son that would die, that be sacrificed. Does that make sense?
Yep. Even with the wood part of this, too, being that it would be a lot, I've read something before that beam that Jesus was supposed to, or had to carry, was like 80 to 100 pounds or something like that, the one that he was going to get nailed to, the cross beam.
Yeah,
Weren't they
I
really
was
super
thinking
heavy?
that in the last 24 hours, because the Passion of the Christ has the full cross, and I'm beginning to wonder, okay, I don't think that, but on the other hand, remember that he is whipped to a point where he can barely stand, and for him to carry up that cross, he can't get it all the way up to the mountain itself. That is literally telling us that he has barely enough strength to get up to the top. All right? Don't discount that. That is literally trying to say where Jesus is physically, that when he's on the cross, he cannot survive, and all the prophecies of him that he would die and his bones not be broken, all right, means that he would have to be whipped to the point where he's almost dying from the whipping, all right, and then he has to go that much further.
What is that called, a flagrum? The Roman whip?
Yeah.
There was a show in that, too, where they took like a chunk of beef, like a cow or whatever, and they put skin over it, and they did the 40 lashings. And they said, well, of course, it perforated the skin part, but there was actually cracked ribs, or broken ribs, and there would have been bone fragments floating around in there, too. So,
if you ever want to take a look, the guy who played Jesus in The Passion of the Christ, he had some kind of board or something over him that would take all those hits. Well, on one time, the guy overextended his reach and actually hit him. It personally hit him, and he, being Jesus, ripped out a 4-letter word for everyone to hear. He's like, I just took that one and I couldn't bear it. And here's Jesus taking it over and over and over again.
And 40 would kill you. That's why they only did 39 usually. Not only, but...
Yeah. But he has to take that in order to die that day. He has to be just brutally, savagely beat in order for his body on the cross. Because remember, when you're crucified, these criminals could be there for days and days and days. Jesus has to be in the tomb on Friday before sundown, all right, before that time.
Before 6, is it? 6 o'clock? Is that sundown compared for the Jews?
That normally, all right. Daylight savings time, I don't know.
Okay.
But he has to be on there because remember, 3 is, 3 days. He has to be in there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Just like it took him 3 days, all right, for Abraham to look and see the symbolism as you unpack it. There's so much in here, and we don't have that much time, so we really have to kind of get in here. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket, he saw a ram. Okay, what's a ram? It's a
goat with horns.
It's a male.
Okay.
All right, and we might. Was it without blemish? I mean, we don't know, but we always paint it with really, really white coat. All right, caught by its horns, he went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. All right, here, the Lord will provide the lamb. Here the lamb is, right off to the side, caught. All right, so Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day, it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. And here's where Professor Lessing is amazing. He takes a look at this and says that don't translate it like that. On the mountain, I mean, you can, but you don't get the full measure of what's going on. Professor Lessing says you look at what, and you can translate that as the Lord will see it accomplished, is the better translation. The Lord will see it accomplished. All right, so we believe, remember, that it's right on that place where Isaac was supposed to be sacrificed, his one and only son, in which Jesus goes up the mountain with the wood of sacrifice, and there that male is sacrificed. And what's his last words, Dave?
It's finished.
It is accomplished.
Okay, it is accomplished.
When you look at it that way, you see the complete tie on that mountain, the Lord will see it accomplished. Because it's all about Jesus. It's not about Abraham. It's not about Isaac. It's about Jesus. All right? And so we don't want to go past that. And the angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven a second time and said, I swear by myself, don't lose that. Right? Angels don't necessarily do that. When we talk about what happened with Moses and the green mist that comes down and kills the Egyptians, the firstborns,
Oh, yeah.
the firstborn son, and God says, I by myself will do this. So when God is calling out, God swears by himself. The angel can't say, God says, because his promise always comes to pass. Not necessarily how we think, but that's always God accomplishing things.
The normal angel would never say I because he's under God. He would be speaking.
Well, he can't swear by himself
Right.
necessarily. I mean, the angel's there because normally God sends him. So he's just the messenger, which is what the Greek for angel means. It means messenger. All right, and so here we see in the Hebrew, that's why we think that this is Jesus. He swears by himself. God says, I myself, all right, just like when he was with Abraham and went through down earlier with the cut pieces of the animals, and God saying, I am the only one who can go down this aisle.
Oh, walking between them when they did the covenant. Okay, yep, gotcha.
Yep. Any more questions? Anything else you're seeing? There's so much. I mean, I know I'm skipping over a lot here, but we want to get through this in this time of journeying to the cross. Here is the number one best picture of what Jesus will do, and it's found in the Old Testament.
Just really quick, too, that whole covenant thing, what did they cut up animal parts?
Okay, so
laid them on
really
each
quickly,
side?
they cut up animal parts in half, put them down, and so this bloody aisle, therefore, when
You walk between them.
you walk between them, and you're basically saying, as you walk with the person, that if either one of us breaks this treaty,
Partnership, yep.
this treaty, I'm allowing you to do this to me.
To this, okay.
But Abraham fell into a deep sleep, and then he gets up and sees the pot of fire going down the aisle, signifying that Abraham could not make a covenant with God because he was sinful, because he could keep up his part of the treaty. So God walks with himself, basically saying,
There's no way God could break the covenant.
right, it's a one-way thing. God will provide this. God will do this. It's not if you as a man do this. God is going to do it.
Cut and dry.
And that's why, we talk about faith. Faith comes from God alone. All right? And so it's not in your doing, as Paul says, lest you would boast. All right? So God takes all the credit, and that's where we need to return the credit.
We got nothing to say about ourselves.
Correct. All right? So good point. Anything else before
No.
we have to wrap up here?
And that should do it.
Did we answer all the questions? Hopefully we did. If not, let us know, and we'll try to go from there. How about that?
It's nice to point this out because I wouldn't get this just by reading this by myself. All those things are just...
Oh,
it's
we didn't
neat.
even unpack half the stuff. You got to really get to the Hebrew, but this is so much fun unpacking this story. And it's not that God is asking Abraham to do the impossible. It is God is doing the impossible for him that Abraham is just attesting to. And that's sometimes what life is. We miss all the miracles that are done because in the eyes of God, miracles are just everyday occurrences.
Right.
It's like, man, God was there and he was guiding. All right? And even in the tough times, God guides you through stuff in order so that what comes in the future is what's better than what you're going through.
And God's like, that's everyday business for me. You're just surprised because you're not used to it.
Yep. All right, so anything else? Nothing else that you wanted to...
Nope, that should do it.
No questions? All right. So we are going to end there for today, but want to remind you to tune in next week, and we'll continue on. So anything else? Nothing
No.
else? All right. So I'm Matt.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you next week.
We'll see you.